What's the dumbest rule your school ever enforced? Can't be standing around in groups more than 4. Gang mentality. My gang of 4 found that policy very convenient. They outlawed bracelets because there was an article in a magazine somewhere saying they advertised what sexual acts you were open for based on their color. Then someone tried to outlaw wristwatches for the same reason. I think I had a Casio calculator watch when I was in school. I wonder what sex act the teachers might have assumed I was up to. OMG, we had the bracelet rule too. So weird. Locked the only boys' bathroom because someone wrote on the wall in Sharpie. It wasn't even anything rude or inappropriate either. It was just the word hi or something like that. Didn't unlock the door until one boy wet himself and parents threatened to sue. Not really a rule, but the toilet paper holders are outside of the stalls on a wall. So you have to calculate before taking a shit how much you need and hope that it was enough. Awful and impossible. Banned all backpacks/bags on campus. Students were expected to somehow carry everything they needed in hand. This was especially challenging if you had an unideal locker placement. We suddenly one day weren't allowed to stand in circles during recess because, and I quote, we could be dealing drugs. I will add that for the years prior we had been standing in circles no problem. Next recess, we stood in a triangle. Cue principal going apeshit. Next day we stood in a square. Principal kept us inside for a week and threatened us all with detentions if we did it again, etc. I believe their idea was open-ended circles so they could see what we were doing. Still stupid. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I should add this was in grade 8 in Canada, middle school. Edit 2. After being told by many to post this on malicious compliance, I did. Then it got removed for being against the rules. RIP. No farting in class. They would say, if you need to fart then go to the toilet, but then 9 times out of 10 if you asked to go to the toilet they'd say no. I remember in 5th grade we would have farting competitions to see who could fart the most during the day. We might have needed this rule. Our high school biology teacher would never let us open the windows due to drafts, even during 35 summer heat. It always smelled terrible in there and there wasn't enough oxygen to actually get through an entire BO lesson. So one day, all of us, around 30 students, agreed to eat terrible food all day and then collectively fart as soon as he comes in the class and shut the door and windows. He suddenly learned the value of open windows. Zero tolerance just means that if someone starts a fight with you, you fight back as hard as you can. You're going to get suspended for defending yourself anyway. Might as well make it worthwhile. In elementary school I literally got chased by a group of about 10 to 15 kids because we were playing Kill the Carrier and I absolutely destroyed one of their friends. So for some reason they decided the game didn't matter at that moment and that they'd all try to fight me. So all I did was run away and head into the school to tell a teacher. And the principal had the audacity to give me their form of detention. No recess for 5 days straight, along with all of the other kids. I remember hearing my dad yelling at the principal, since this was like the 4th time I got in trouble for simply defending myself or escaping conflict. Years later I found out he actually cursed her out, and she was standing there in shock. You have to wear your tie all the way home. Some sad bastard teachers would stand on the main road away from the school and try to hand out detentions in presumably their own time. Why even do this? You're not even in the school property. In grade school, we weren't allowed to play on the playground equipment when it snowed. Eventually, we weren't allowed to play with snow or even go near it. I got in trouble for sitting in snow. This was in Minnesota where it snows half the year. Recess basically consisted of milling around the blacktop for 30 minutes. Ah yes, I remember the ridiculous snow rules in MN growing up. In my elementary school we weren't allowed to throw snow or make snowballs of any size, including rolling big ones. What ended up happening is that each grade, very small class sizes, would make their own snow forts from existing snow clumps created by the plows. The demand for snow clumps was furious. And so we would then attack other grade snow forts to get more resources, that is, steal the clumps of snow making up their base. Without the ability to throw snowballs, we'd just badislam each other instead. It was chaos, and also likely more dangerous than snowballs lol. Edit. No, I didn't go to your school. I think MN kids are all just born to bedislum each other. When I was in junior school, UK boarding school in the 80s, we were not allowed to say okay as it was considered slang and not befitting the young ladies and gentlemen that we should aspire to be. For context, junior school covered ages 5 to 13. We also had to have a comb and a handkerchief on us at all times. On top of that, we weren't allowed to have our hands in our pockets because it looks slovenly. What Victorian boarding school did you go to? Don't damage school property sounds reasonable enough until you get detention for staining a chair after suddenly getting your period. Oof, that's one of the worst I've seen yet. Happened to a girl in my school, but they quickly reversed it after 1. They realized she was the daughter of a high school teacher, and 2. All the boys and girls came forward to complain that she had raised her hand to go to the bathroom and the teacher ignored it. We kept calling his name to get his attention and he just kept teaching class. It was really weird. Anyway, she finally just got up and left. Blood all over the chair. We were kinda freaked out because it was 5th grade and the boys didn't know about periods yet and only a few girls really did. She was the first one in our entire grade. Teacher didn't even clean it up or call anyone. Class ended and we went to the next class and we could hear the class filing and going WTF. Teacher tried to turn her in for leaving class and see reasons above why it didn't work. To our credit, not a single person teased her and every one of us went to the principal to complain about the teacher. But 10 you know. No fighting, enforced by punishing the kids who were getting hit. We weren't allowed to wear thongs. I don't know how they caught people who did tbh. For a while it was a fad to leave them purposefully visible under low-rise jeans. It wasn't really the rule that was dumb, but the reason for it. In my last year of high school, the school issued a rule that all students had to wear student IDs. If you didn't, you had to immediately go and pay for another ID. While you can see how many students may have saw this a way to skip class, the reason for this was the school shootings that happened the previous year. The reasoning was that it would be easier to spot who is a student and who is not a student, to then see who has malicious intent, except that most shooters were students, so no beads. Apparently they thought beaded jewelry was gang related. We once had a rule that we could only go to the bathroom during class, not in the breaks, only during class. Really weird that this is the reverse of most bathroom policies being brought up here. Was there a reason for it? Toilet paper rationing. This was in 1997/98. BTW. Apparently the high school girls' room was going through too much toilet paper, so the dean, a woman, stood outside the door and distributed a few squares of one-ply institutional toilet paper to us as we went in. If she noticed toilet paper on the floor, our ration got cut down. If we asked for more for bigger jobs, we were told to save it for home. There were several episodes of girls stuck in stalls until friends could beg for more TP because of period messes or unexpected bowel incidents. The dean wouldn't even hand it over. She would go in the bathroom and pass it a few squares at a time over the door. If you didn't catch it as it fell and it landed on the floor, well, that's your fault and you're not getting more. If you used more than she thought necessary, tough luck. Go to class with blood/shit on your body. It took about a week of extremely angry parents coming to the school and calling both the school and the school board, but we finally got our toilet paper back. Unlimited. How did we celebrate? Biping her car, of course. I was wearing a regulation uniform jacket in a classroom during winter that had no heating. The teacher demanded I remove my jacket and I refused because I was cold. She sent me to the headmistress. I had uniforms in my school with much the same policy, but we had no regulation coats with a rule that stated the moment you entered through the doors you take your coats off, no argument. I live in Canada where most of the days in the winter it was -20 with a wind chill of -30 and you had to take your coat off before you entered the school and put it on after you left the foyer. The ironic thing was I was a cringy dweeb who thought wearing a trench coat to school was cool and hip, and the teachers and principal had no problem me wearing that because it was formal wear and went with the school uniform. Mind you, it was a tattered old thing I found at a Goodwill for $5. Rule: no duct tape on clothing. Reason: Some girls thought they could get past the no rip jeans rule by covering the tears with duct tape. It became a fad and everyone started doing it, so it got banned. A kid in my app literature class found a loophole and made an entire outfit out of red and black duct tape. I mean shorts, a shirt and a jacket and shoes. When the school tried to suspend him, they couldn't because the rule was no duct tape on clothes. It said nothing about clothes made out of duct tape. He won the argument and even wore the outfit a few more times to say fuck you to the school and principals lol. Edit. This is it. This is as popular as I'll ever be. Take that, Principal Conrad. Really though, to answer a regularly asked question, ripped jeans were an issue because they made the school look trashy, not cause they showed skin. However, there were many other rules to enforce no excessive skin be shown. We would get suspended for rips in our clothes and also for duct tape on clothes, both for the same reason. It was trashy mayo. Different staircases for boys and girls. Edit. Wow, this blew up. To clarify, this rule was enforced purely with the idea that good boys and girls don't talk to each other. The general air in the school was don't have anything to do with the opposite gender. I was in this school for only 2 years, and coming from other good code school, this really weirded me out. Also, the guys would just act creepy even for a simple "can you please move out of the way." I believe this awkwardness could be prevented if there wasn't such an obvious separation between the genders. Edit 2. It wasn't a religious school, just a general public school. Edit 3. No skirts. The uniform was similar to a salwar camis. One particular professor at my university would lock the door a minute after class began. If you had to leave to go to the bathroom, you couldn't get back in. Somehow this ancient fossil is still teaching and pulling similar shit. Had the same professor for 3 different classes that did basically this. He would shut the door and pull the window shade down as soon as the clock struck whatever time the class started. Anyone that came in after that, he would write their name down and mark them late. 3 lates and you grade would be dropped a whole letter grade from an A to B, C to D, etc. It was a stupid rule because my college campus was very spread out. So if you were someone that had back-to-back classes all over campus, you would almost guaranteed to be late. I'm pretty sure he was forced to stop doing that because there was a semester where half the class was failing just because they were late one too many times. Dildos were banned. The school never thought they would have to print those words. You would think it was a given. Until a senior bought 100 dildos and snuck them around the school every day for 2 weeks straight. I love how utterly weird some kids can be. Girls weren't allowed to show their ankles. The dean had a pack of socks in her office she would give the students and make them wear. Only girls though. This was the 2000s. My school made it compulsory to wear uniform in online classes. My high school decided to ban women's athletic shorts one day, which was ridiculous for many reasons. The next day every girl showed up in athletic shorts and the rule was removed by second block. My high school principal was a stickler for the dress code rules, mostly for girls of course. She would stand in the hallway and just look for violations. If your shorts were shorter than your fingertips you had to go change. Yet cheerleaders were allowed to wear their cheer uniforms, which were very short skirts. No hate on those girls, but how is that fair? No leaving the dorm, unless it's for a fire alarm. I went to boarding school from the age of 7. That rule meant we couldn't get out of our dormitory to have a wee in the night. We had a plastic tub one of the girls brought in and went in that. Then we had to smuggle the tub to the bathroom in the morning without matron seeing. Stupid bloody rule. Edit. Everyone is saying pee out the door or pee on the floor. Just imagine the punishments we got for misbehaving. Doing anything against matron would have never crossed our minds. Also this was 80s, early 90s, Southern England. Our punishments were pretty awful, but I survived. We all did. I'm still in touch with some of the girls I boarded with back then. We have our scars, but we're a tough lot. Second edit. Dad was in the army and they moved around a lot. So being sent away was for stability and consistency. Dumbest rule. Zero tolerance for fighting. This meant both the kid who started the fight and the kid who got beat on were both suspended. If the kid who got beat on just took it, he was just sent home for the rest of the day. If he dared to fight back, he was suspended for a week, just like the kid who started the fight. Here's the truly stupid part. The school administrators couldn't explain how this led to more brutal fights. Without the appropriate uniform, you couldn't get in with the gym one. For instance, with other books, earrings, necklaces or anything that could make noise while you were walking. Some were reasonable, but the issue was that one simple mistake and you would get banned. 6th, any banishment from it was permanent. I complained about it once in the second year and was never allowed inside ever again. I even tried to get some teachers to help me, but it didn't work. 7th, and probably the dumbest. Only the students that had a certain amount of high grades could get any book at all. If you got something like 4/10ths on your last biology exam, you couldn't even get inside the library. The standard was so insane. Only 6 other students and I in my classroom had enough good grades to get books. In all my time there, the library was basically deserted for the majority of it. I tried to go there many times, but it was too much work. Out of all the books I only managed to read 2 Brazilian ones, A. Gura do Lanche, The Lunch War, and Blackout Blackout, which I remembered to this day in details. There were times where I legit thought about straight up ditching class to read some of them. I tried to get more, like the last problem, Kafka's Metamorphosis, Ulysses, which I know I wouldn't have been able to do it, but I was just curious, A Brief Story of Time, Wuthering Heights, etc. But the amount of work it took was so much that it was just almost impossible to be able to read more than 1 or 2 books a year. And even that took dedication, because I basically had to sacrifice part of my lunch time. The rumor was that the principals, we had more than one, basically saw us as savages who would destroy the books if we were allowed to touch them, and even though they had no reason to believe so, the library worked well without those restrictions a year before I had gotten there, with only minimal incidents, and even those didn't result in the books getting destroyed. TL. Doctor, my school made it very hard to read the huge amount of books they had in high school. Hair length on men and stubble. Look, a bunch of 15 to 16-year-old guys are going to have a bit of stubble, no matter how thoroughly we shave. Forcing us to go to the principal's office to dry shave nearly daily is fucking absurd. All boys school with those same rules. One day I was in class and my teacher sent me to the dean for not shaving. I had stubble and am a hairy guy hot had facial hair since like 7th grade. My friend defended me saying I shaved this morning and showed the dean a Snapchat screenshot of me with shaving cream on half my face. From that morning, that teacher did not like me, lol. A few weird ones and their reasoning behind making them. Girls weren't allowed to wear tops with spaghetti straps because they could be easily cut with scissors. No tube tops either because they could easily be pulled down. No bra straps showing whatsoever because it was considered indecent. No soft drinks with actual sugar because if it spilled, it would make a sticky mess. Diet soft drinks were fine because they wouldn't get as sticky. No beverages of any kind, only in certain classrooms, depending on who the teacher was. Not like computer labs where it was obvious drinks shouldn't be allowed. I'm talking like random math or history classes based on who your teacher was. Whereas the same class taught by a different teacher, it was allowed because fuck you if you're thirsty. No shirts from the company Billabong because it says bong and that's a drug reference. And last but not least, because this one is a really funny one, and I'm hoping someone from my class sees this and can confirm, no wearing the Alice in Wonderland joint smoking caterpillar shirts that we designed for homecoming week, because that's absolutely not a paintbrush. This one makes sense, no idea how it got approved. Edit. Since a lot of people requested a picture of the shirt, the best part was the assistant principal firing up the PA about 20 minutes into first period. Attention students. Will the entire sophomore class please report to the auditorium for a mandatory meeting? You know why. Thank you. My high school had the same rules for the girls' clothing. I remember once my bra strap kept falling down. The teacher handed me a bunch of safety pins and told me to fix it or I'd get detention. I went to the bathroom and slipped that strap into my bra instead of putting holes in my clothes. I then got in trouble because the teacher thought I was going braless, and in his opinion that was worse. I had to show him my other bra strap. which I then told my counselor about because I felt that me having to prove I was wearing a bra was inappropriate. He literally told me in front of class to prove I was wearing a bra. Not sure if he got in trouble, but he never made a comment about anyone's clothing again. After 9/11, my school instituted a zero tolerance policy on bullying and violence. What 9/11 had to do with bullying, I don't know. Anyways, Halloween 2001. I dressed up as the guy from Clockwork Orange. He carries a cane around. The principal pulled me aside, told me walking around with a cane could be a weapon. Therefore just walking with it is an act of violence, and suspended me for a couple of days. Telling me that after 9/11, we don't mess around with that kind of stuff. Edit. This happened in Quebec, in a small town. No hot drinks. Rumor said it was because the principal burned himself while drinking something. So he banned it. Girls must have male escort them to prom as their date. If your date bails, you can't enter. We were an all-girls school. Many of us had zero guy friends. Finding dates was hard. I remember one year a girl's boyfriend dumped her when everyone was starting to show up for photos. She showed up at the venue, mascara running, begging the principal to let her go in. Principal wouldn't let her. One of the senior homeroom teachers ended up calling her nephew and said, "I need you to put on your suit and get here as soon as possible." He showed up with flowers and everything. So like, it was salvageable but totally avoidable. The worst part? It wasn't always a rule until one year a group of girls went as friends and kept stealing other people's dates. Way to punish everyone forever because of one group of bitches. That if you say / do anything back to your bully it becomes a mutual conflict and isn't bullying. So if they start calling you slurs and making you feel bad every day and you call them stupid once or twice the school probably won't help. Also dress code required school branded hoodies. They were $50. If you wore an on-school hoodie you got in school suspension. A kid went to the hospital after falling from a wall. Then the school painted yellow lines around the school as a border which the kids weren't allowed to cross. So the teachers had to stand guard and make sure no one crossed it. You could only go to the bathroom twice a day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Mind you this is from 8 to 3 and you had to get a new pass every week and keep it the whole time or you couldn't use the bathroom. Edit. This was pre-K 8th grade. We actually had a dealer who would make fake passes so they had to start color coding them. They got rid of this rule a month before I graduated. Edit 2. My new high school has a just go policy and they have no issues. I'm loving it lol. Edit 3 lol. They actually encourage drinking water, at least half your body weight crap, and would have times to drink water from the many water fountains. The hypocrisy. L. My high school had coordinates, not a uniform, but they stopped selling the shorts like a decade before I started there. So me and a bunch of buddies tracked down used pairs and started wearing them. Next year, shorts were banned outright. So me and a bunch of buddies on the rugby team started wearing skirts because the rules said skirts were acceptable but didn't specify gender. So you had a bunch of guys with hairy legs walking around in skirts. We deliberately hiked up a little to show some thigh. Shorts were allowed again in a week. No unnatural hair colors, except for Lily, who dyed her hair the school color, maroon. It was dark enough to argue it was a weird red/brown, but it was clearly maroon, and I think she got away with it because it was school spirit. You had to have black shoelaces. No dark blue, no white, no gray, only black. There was also the rule your tie had to be a minimum length. So sometimes one of the assistant head teachers would come in and measure the length of your tie with a ruler. I spent 2 years in a private Christian school where girls could not wear skirts or dresses unless it covered their whole legs all the way down to their feet. We were between 3 and 8 years old, and that rule was meant to make sure boys wouldn't have any sexual temptation. This is not a joke. Couldn't shit in the potted plants right outside the cafeteria door. Stupid fascists.